Morning. So I saw an interesting video. It's from a channel called After Skool, and I'll link it in the description. But it's basically just kind of an animated companion to some sort of lecture, and the lecture was on dopamine and kind of how it works in the brain, and how our body chemistry functions. And kind of the big takeaway from the video was that dopamine doesn't work the way most people think it does. It's not the pleasure response, but it's the motivator to go and achieve something, and the achieving something becomes the pleasure response or the reward system for doing whatever thing. And I thought that was interesting because basically what they're saying is, they do these experiments with lab rats, and they either boost or suppress dopamine in these rats, and in either case, like, they will enjoy things, right? They'll eat to their heart's content and be fat, dumb, and happy, but if you make it like just minimally difficult to go get the next food pellet, the dopamine suppressed rat has no motivation to get up and go do it. It's kind of like, what's the point, right? Whereas the dopamine enhanced rat is motivated to go and try and achieve something, right? And so it's not happy where it is, but it's got this driver to go and explore, right? I thought that was interesting from the perspective of suffering, and I'm of the opinion that humans are not designed to be happy, and so I guess this kind of aligns with my own biases, my own thinking on the subject, but it rings true to me. That what really drives us, motivates us, is the struggle to achieve something, not the actual reaching the goal itself. And it was especially interesting considering, like, I'd watched it on the way home as I was coming down with like a pretty epic flu. And so I was thinking about it in kind of like a fever dream sort of state, like for a while. And I don't know if you've ever had one of those flus where you get these kind of like fever dreams, and it's kind of bizarre, and it can often feel like the story of Sisyphus, doomed to push the rock up the mountain only to have it roll down on him again over and over. And I was thinking about it in the midst of this fever, and just being in agony for hours and hours, and struggling to get any kind of sleep. And like it was a situation where, like, if I started to sleep, I would overheat because I was running a really high fever, and it would wake me up because I would start getting queasy and breathing hard, and then I'd have to go like soak myself in cool water to get comfortable enough to try and fall asleep, only to then be woken up again. And it reminded me of all the times that I'd been in that situation, where I'd been kind of delirious and feverish. There's one time when I was real young and we were on vacation, and I got like sun poisoning or something like that, but I was delirious all night, and I was having this fever dream where I had to assemble like a jetliner with toothpicks. Like, it was an impossible task that would just take an infinite amount of time, like, and doing it with toothpicks, like, obviously not the correct tool, but like it was maddening. And like, I just had like this sense that I had to focus and accomplish this task. I don't know why it was that, but like, and it was all night, like, and this kind of agonizing, like, need to do this thing. Or another time when I was real sick, and it was like kind of like a codeine cough syrup loopy too. And this was a really bizarre one, but like I would hallucinate, like I was literally hallucinating that there was like a spigot or a tap on the wall. And if I tried to sleep, like if I relaxed, the tap would fly open and water would come rushing into the room and wake me up. And so I had to sit and look at the tap and hold the tap closed with my mind. And of course I was exhausted and all I wanted to do was sleep. But if I lost focus for a second, that tap would fly open and it would wake me up. Anyway, so it was this, kind of catch-22 or Sisyphus sort of scenario where I was just like, I could not relax because of this, fever dream. And so, it was kind of a similar situation, right? Like I couldn't relax because, sleeping would cause the thing that would wake me up. And it was like this for, a couple days, but especially at night. Like I was just, loopy and exhausted and uncomfortable. But especially having had those experiences before, and maybe you've had like a really bad fever, but where you finally, the fever breaks, and like you breathe that deep sigh of like just release, and it's kind of euphoric. Like you can finally relax and you feel your body kind of let go of that tension. And in that video they were talking about things like ice water baths and how like suffering through that actually caused a huge dopamine release once you came through the other side, and actually affects how your brain works, your outlook works for an extended period of time following that. And so I thought that was a really good example, or maybe timely example, seeing as how I had just watched this video as I was coming down with something. But yeah, it like I said, it seemed to ring true that humans are just not put together to be happy, and we actually need the dopamine not to, satisfy a desire, but to motivate us to go out and do things, and that we're not in the right headspace unless we're doing that. And in the video they actually make the point that a lot of the instant gratification we have is actually not giving us dopamine hits, but suppressing the whole dopamine system and taking away our motivation to go out and do things, because we don't have to struggle or suffer through or work to achieve anything. It's just we get instant gratification, and so there's no motivation anymore. And that people who suffer in that way, not necessarily talking about people with actual diagnosed mental illnesses or anything, not playing doctor or anything, but I think it's interesting that we actually undercut our ability to work through some of our own problems with things like social media and that instant gratification. And we actually, and I think they make the point in this video, that we find like we continue to do it, and we eventually come to the realization, like I'm not happier doing this, right? It's not making me a happier person. I don't feel any more fulfilled. In fact, it's making me miserable. And yet we continue to do it. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. I thought it was an interesting idea. Watch the video. Like I said, I'll drop the link in the description. But I mean, do you think we're actually meant to be happy, or are we meant to be uncomfortable? And do you have any interesting fever dream experiences? I'd love to hear it, because they're wacky. Anyway, it's been fun, inspiring, and uplifting as always. We'll see you on the next one.